What a morning it's been here in Cleveland. The Browns are getting ready to kick off against the Bengals. The energy downtown has been as dead as I've ever felt since moving to downtown Cleveland 3 years ago on a day of a home game. And part of that is the fact the Browns have been atrocious this year. The other factor in that equation is the hangover from the Guardians' loss last night. 5 games in the ALCS, all 5 interesting till the very end. But in the end, the Yankees prevail over the Guardians 4-1. And Cleveland is now headed into the offseason with some serious questions, some serious decisions, and some roster personnel and player evaluations that they better nail, or it could be a while until this team returns to the ALCS. Now, I want to put all this into context. The Guardians this year had a preseason win total of less than 80 games. This team was not expected to compete for the AL Central title. They did that. To make the playoffs, they did that. To win a playoff round, they did that. This 2024 Guardians team overachieved by every possible preseason expectation, and for that, they deserve a round of applause and our gratitude and appreciation for what was a surprisingly and shockingly fun baseball year in the city of Cleveland. Attendance numbers were up. The team hit home runs. Stephen Vogt replaced Terry Francona seamlessly. The Stars played their best. Jose had a great season. He'll finish top 5 in the AL MVP again. Josh Naylor went 30 homers, 100 RBIs. Stephen Kwan flirted with 400 for part of the season. He ended up in a little bit of a slump before then regaining his not MVP form, but his all-star caliber form in the playoffs. The acquisition of Lane Thomas paid dividends. David Fry was a surprise all-star. Emmanuel Clase was incredible. So before we get into a little vent and a little disappointment and a little frustration at what went wrong, it is worth noting that this was an incredibly successful season for the Cleveland Guardians. It wasn't perfect because they didn't win the World Series, but it was an incredibly successful season given the circumstances. Remind you, look at the guys they pitched, starting pitchers in the playoffs. They started the season with Shane Bieber, who was supposed to be their ace. Well, he had Tommy John 2 starts in, missed the rest of the season. Okay, your best pitcher's out. Tristan McKenzie. Oh, he was an abomination this year. His arm never looked healthy. He contributed nothing. They had guys like Ben Lively, Alex Cobb, and Matthew Boyd pitching meaningful innings, legitimate meaningful innings, and we'll get to the starting pitching issues in a second in the postseason. So I'm gonna say some things that I'm frustrated about, I'm disappointed in, I'm upset they lost, but I just need everyone to keep in context. This was an incredibly successful season. They were not expected to win 92 regular season games. They were not expected to get a first-round bye in the playoffs. Hell, they were definitely not expected to reach the ALCS. And while they lost 4-1 to the Yankees, they gave New York just about everything they could handle, and it probably should have gone longer than 5 games if it weren't for the Guardian Stars letting them down in the biggest moments. Part of the reason the Guardians had such a successful regular season were this. They were an elite defensive team by almost any metric you could look at. If you want to go basic defensive stats, if you want to go advanced defensive analytics, the Guardians ranked in the top third of baseball in everything. Runs saved, defensive fielding percentage, fewest errors, the distance, I don't know the exact name of the stat, but the distance traveled by outfielders to get to the ball, defensive assists. This was an elite defensive team. They also ran the bases incredibly well. And most importantly, their bullpen was the single best weapon in the entire sport from the start of the season to the end of the season. If you could look at any unit, the Yankees lineup, the Dodgers starting rotation, the Guardians bullpen, pick and choose whatever individual facet of a team you wanted to look at, the Guardians bullpen was historically good this year, and it was better than any other individual unit in baseball this season. Now, fast forward to the ALCS. The Guardians bullpen let them down. The Guardians defense let them down. And their ability to steal bases and their base running was a non-factor. The 3 things that led the Guardians to this point is what did them dirty in the biggest moment, on the biggest stage, with the brightest lights. You can go back to Game 5. It's essentially all encapsulated in Game 5. We saw it early with the very second batter of the game. Juan Soto rips one into right field. The Yankees decide to send Gleyber Torres around, try to score from first. Noel makes a perfect relay to Jimenez. Jimenez makes a perfect relay to Bo Naylor, and they get him by this much. An absolutely incredible play, and all the momentum swings back into the Guardians' favor. And then Tanner Bybee throws his best start of the postseason. It was the best start any Guardian starter has had in the 2 rounds of the playoffs. He gave him some real depth, but he made a grave, grave mistake. Hindsight's 2020. But I can show you the text group of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show where I said, you can't pitch to Stanton here. He's red hot. He's locked in. Jazz Chisholm's on deck. You can't let Stanton beat you. And Stephen Vogt, Tanner Bybee, Bo Naylor, Carl Willis, the entire Guardian staff said, we're going to try to pitch around Stanton. Not intentional walk him. We're going to pitch around him, which in theory sounds great. They didn't give him any fastballs. They didn't throw a single ball in the strike zone. The first 2 strikes on Stanton in that at-bat with the Guardians leading 2-0 were on chases. Stanton swung and missed on bad pitches. The one thing you can't do in that situation is hang a breaking ball. And that certainly wasn't what Stephen Vogt called for. It certainly wasn't what Bo Naylor called for. It certainly wasn't what Tanner Bybee was trying to do. But it's what happened. And Stanton sent that puppy 430 feet into the left field bleachers. A catastrophic mistake. Frankly, his only real mistake on what was an otherwise stellar start from the Guardians' ace. It's disappointing because that's the guy you can't let kill you. Aaron Judge has not been terrific in this postseason. His home run off Clase, which we're going to go back to previous games in a sec, in Game 3 was incredible, but he hasn't killed you. It's been Soto and it's been Stanton. And you can't let, in that situation, in my opinion, the hottest guy on the other team with Paul Bunyan-esque power have a chance to tie the game with Jazz Chisholm on deck. It's one thing to pitch to Soto if you have Stanton on deck, or if you have Judge on deck, or if you pitch to Judge because you have Stanton. But when Jazz Chisholm's the guy who's on deck, I'm taking my chances with that 100 out of 100 times over pitching to Stanton with the base open. To me, it made no sense. And I think that's a serious decision that we can question Stephen Vogt on in the coming days, months, weeks, until next season begins. Obviously, that wasn't what he called for. They were trying to pitch around him, which is an intentional walk. But I just don't like the situation or the ability to have a mistake like that and allow the result to happen. Just don't give him anything to hit. Throw it in the dirt. The only thing you can't allow there is to hang a breaking ball, and that's exactly what he did. So now it's 2-2. Go back and forth. Stephen Vogt decides to bring in Clase last night. And I'm like, I don't trust Clase at all. Nothing. Do not trust him out at all last night. He comes in the game, and I tell my buddies, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Nope. And you know what? To Clase's credit, after giving up 2 home runs in Game 3 and giving up the go-ahead run last night in Game 4, he came in and pitched his butt off and got out of an inning pretty seamlessly, and it worked. So now let's fast forward to the 10th, because this is the cataclysm and the perfect microcosm of the Guardians season. We said earlier, the Guardians' success in the regular season, 2 of the 3 factors: base running, defense, and the bullpen. In the 10th inning, it's a tough play, not an easy play, but the exchange between Andres Jimenez, a platinum glover, and Brian Rocchio, the shortstop, and that failed flip, which Rocchio then tried to turn 2 on. The flip from Jimenez came in a little too hot, hits off the top of his glove, bounces out. Even if they just get 1 on that play, not 2. Let's say they don't turn 2. Let's just say Rocchio catches it, 1 out. They don't turn 2. You don't face Soto. Or you never know exactly what's going to happen, but Torres got out the next batter, and that would have been the inning. And Soto never faces Gaddis in the 10th inning and never hits the towering 3-run shot that sends the Yankees to the ALCS. Jimenez is a platinum glover, arguably the best defensive player in all of baseball. His defense at second base is as good as any individual player plays defense at their respective position in the entire league. He's that good. And whether or not that should have been caught by Rocchio, I think it should have been caught, frankly. Definitely not an easy play, but a play that a shortstop in an ALCS in a crutch situation has to make. It's got to be made. So Rocchio and the defense lets him down. Instead of turning 2, instead of just getting 1 out, they get none. And now it's first and second for Gleyber Torres. And Torres strikes out, or grounds. I forget what it is. I think he struck out. And had that been the third out of the inning, then you go into the 11th with Soto, Judge, and Stanton up. Instead, we all know what happened. High fastball, not a bad pitch, an incredible swing by Soto. You got to give the dude credit. Just like Clase to Judge in game 3, where Judge made an incredible swing on a 99-mile-an-hour cutter on the black to send it into the right field bleachers. It was an equally impressive swing to get the barrel of the bat on a 96-mile-an-hour elevated fastball up at the letters. I mean, kudos where kudos is due. But the bullpen, which had been so stellar all season, for the third time in 4 games, or 4 losses, let them down. And it's a gut punch. Because even though it was a 4-1 series, those games were so close. And the Guardians had so many opportunities. And from an offensive standpoint for the Guardians, Jose wasn't Jose. And Josh Naylor wasn't Josh Naylor. He had a couple hits throughout the series, sprinkled in here and there, but it wasn't enough. And you look at the Yankee stars. Soto, 3-run bomb last night. He was incredible all series. Stanton now has more homers in his first 15 career postseason games as a Yankee than any other player in the history of the franchise. And Judge wasn't great this series, but he had arguably the biggest hit of them all, that 2-run homer off Clase in game 3. Well, actually, no, it definitely wasn't the biggest homer of them all because the Guardians came back and won that incredible game. But you get what I'm saying. They all had their moments of pure brilliance. The Guardians couldn't find it. They just couldn't find it consistently enough. In the series, Jose, and I love Jose, love him to death. But in this postseason in 10 games, he hit 200, 6 RBIs in 10 games, just 2 homers. Josh Naylor hit 225 in the playoffs, 40 at-bats for Josh Naylor, 9 hits. He had 2 doubles, no homers, 5 RBIs. Steven Kwan stepped up. He had 16 hits in 10 games. He hit 381. Brian Rocchio at the plate, I thought was really good. He hit 333, 11 hits and 33 at-bats. Manzardo had flashes. David Fry had flashes. Lane Thomas had flashes. But you notice all the guys I just named aren't the guys you need to count on in the middle of the lineup to hit those guys in, to score those runs, to create big innings. It's one thing to have a nice 1-run second inning, but you got to put some crooked numbers on the board at times. And the Guardians just weren't able to do that time after time. Part of the reason the bullpen let them down was the starting pitching couldn't get out of the 3rd inning. How many times this postseason? I can give you the exact answer. It's 8 out of 10 games. The starting pitcher didn't make it into the 4th inning. And eventually that taxes a bullpen. And that's why guys like Cade Smith in game 4 had his 3rd lowest velocity of the season. And guys like Clase in game 4 looked gassed. And that's why guys like Hunter Gaddis last night, had he not pitched in 9 games of the 10 potential opportunities for the Guardians, maybe that fastball letter high is coming in 97, 98 and not 95, 96. All these little factors contributed to the Guardians coming up just this short against the Yankees in the ALCS. Now, that doesn't diminish what an incredible season this was overall. Seriously, it was an incredible season for the Guardians. They exceeded every possible expectation. Even the most diehard optimistic Guardians fan couldn't have foreseen the Guardians with their roster, with their payroll, with the lineup they had, finishing the season with 92 wins and reaching the ALCS and giving the Yankees, frankly, all they could handle. Even though the final series was 4-1, those games were close. The 2 in New York were close, even though they never felt extremely close. Game 3 was maybe the best baseball game we've seen of any kind, Cleveland related or not, in the last decade. The back and forth affair, the 2 homers off Clase, the Jhonkensy Noel game-tying home run, the David Fry walk-off. I mean, that was incredible theater. Last night, Soto with the big hit. I mean, it was a great series. And it's disappointing to be on the wrong side of it, but all in all, it's a hell of a season for the Guardians. And as much as I want to rip them and question decisions and say they're not good enough and say tear it down and start over, like, I just don't have that feeling this morning. I'm frustrated it didn't go our way and it didn't go in the favor of the Cleveland Guardians, but they have a lot of things to build upon. And frankly, with the starting rotation they had, it makes no sense whatsoever. 0 zilch, not a nothing for them to be in the position they're in. Next year, on paper, you get Bobby back. Gavin Williams, who had a piss-poor regular season. He was 3-10 on the regular season with an ERA above 4.5. Never fully felt healthy from the elbow injury he sustained in training camp, or spring training, excuse me. He comes back. You would hope a full offseason to recover, repair, whatever you need. That's a guy you should be able to count on in the rotation next year. Shane Bieber, I'm expecting to come back next year on a 1-year prove-it deal, and he may not be ready to go at the beginning of the season, but wouldn't it have helped to have some version of Shane Bieber in this playoff series? Instead of starting guys like Alex Cobb, who, good try, didn't really work out, instead of throwing out Matthew Boyd, who did a terrific job. I mean, Matthew Boyd came from nothing, absolutely nothing, to starting three crucial games for the Guardians in the playoffs and pitching a gem in what was the gem he pitched? Game 2 or game 3? No, it was game 3. First game back in Cleveland. Yeah. Did a great job. And will he be back next season? I'm not sure. Tristan McKenzie. I don't know what to expect from McKenzie. You could tell me McKenzie's going to be back next season like previous Tristan McKenzie, previous injury, and look incredible. You could tell me Tristan McKenzie's career as an elite starting pitcher is over, or even a really good starting pitcher is over. I have no idea what his future holds. Clase, I expect back. Cade Smith is an incredible weapon out of the bullpen. Hunter Gaddis, I mean, rags to riches story. David Fry. I don't know if we'll get the same David Fry season, but you have Lane Thomas coming back. You have a couple young prospects and Chase DeLauder, Ralphie Velasquez, Kyle Manzardo will be fully with the squad next season. Travis Bazzana, their number 1 overall pick. They have reinforcements coming. The question is, are they going to spend money in the offseason to bring in some reinforcements to kind of bridge the gap between this current roster and the future roster? Guys, they're not far away. They're not. You saw the difference in the payroll between the Yankees and the Guardians is almost $200 million. Something absurd like that. The Yankees payroll is over $300 million. The Guardians is just over $100 million. And they hung right in there despite not having a lot of their top guys. Bieber, for example, is the perfect prime example of a guy who should be able to go toe-to-toe with any of the Yankee starters, but he's not healthy. If you're asking me, do I think the Guardians ownership will be willing to spend based off the success of this season, knowing how close they could be? No, I don't anticipate that. Why? Because they've never done it in the past. And the Guardians continue to find ways to win with guys on the margins that other teams simply just don't do. They're the best in the league at that. Finding guys like Matthew Boyd off the scrap heap to come in and provide meaningful innings in a giant situation. So no, I don't expect them to do anything major. Last year, their only real acquisition was Austin Hedges, and he'll be back next season. But other than that, I'm not quite sure what the big move for the Guardians is. They need another starting pitcher just to ensure some depth in that rotation, especially until Shane Bieber returns. And Bieber's not the guy you go out and sign to do that. It's somebody on top of bringing Bieber back. You need a bat in the outfield. I would love to see a more consistent right fielder. I love Noel. Love that. His power is incredible. I'm not sure if I'm ready to hand over the reins to right field to him full time yet. But a middle of the lineup bat in right field would be terrific. Bazzana's coming up at some point. Is Rocchio your shortstop of the future? I'm not 100% sure. Is Bo Naylor your catcher of the future? I'm also not 100% sure. And how are you going to fit Manzardo and Naylor side by side unless you're going to platoon one as a DH? Frankly, I would want to see Manzardo get more opportunities at first base. But they have guys that are ready to contribute. It's just, are those guys at the same level of another team like the Yankees who are going to bring in reinforcements because that's what they do every year? I remember talking close to the trade deadline. One name that just stands out to me. I did a whole thing on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on why this was the perfect trade target for the Guardians at the deadline, and that was Brent Rooker from the Oakland Athletics, who had an incredible season. Let me pull up his numbers real quick because he's a guy, if you're not a big baseball fan, kind of flies under the radar. But he had an incredible season with the A's this year. Hit 293, 39 homers, 112 RBIs, a 927 OPS in the middle of a pretty bad Oakland lineup. And he would be able to he's coming into his last season of his contract. So the Guardians, whether it be a rental, whether they want to sign him to a long-term deal, I don't know if they'd dish out the money it would take. But Rooker's already 30 years old. He turns 30 next month. He's 29 right now. November 1st is his birthday. So I don't think it's a massive 8-9 year deal, but 5 for 150 might be in the range for Brent Rooker, something like that. And that's a guy I think would fit seamlessly as a right-handed hitter who can play both corner outfield positions. Obviously, you have Quan in left, so you don't necessarily need a left fielder, but you get what I'm saying. He's a little versatility. He would be a guy that would be absolutely incredible in this lineup, and a guy I would love to see the Guardians pursue this offseason. I'm not quite sure the list of starting pitchers who'd be available. I'm not sure which prospects the Guardians would be willing to part ways with. Frankly, I'm not sure how the Guardians want to operate and enter 2025, knowing that they have reinforcements in the wings, but are they going to be ready soon enough to come up and help this ready-made ALCS roster in 2026 or 2025, excuse me. We saw it in 2024. How quickly is Bazana and DeLauder and Velasquez and the likes of those guys going to be able to climb through and make an impact on the major league level? And are you willing to count on young guys, unproven guys, guys who still have to make their major league debuts and prove what they're doing in the minor leagues translates to the major leagues? How many of those guys are you willing to count on come playoff time? Because this Guardians team should be competing for the ALCS and the American League pennant for years to come. But it is worth noting, we said that in 2016 when they lost the World Series to the Cubs. And it took them 6 years to get back to even the ALDS. So there's no guarantee in baseball. And that's why I would love to see the Guardians be as aggressive as humanly possible this offseason, because you have a ready-made rest of the roster. And at some point, guys like Naylor and Quan and Thomas and Bo Naylor, like, are they going to sign long-term contracts here or not? So while you have them here, you might as well make the most of the opportunity. And the Guardians, who had an incredible season, came up just short against a really good baseball team who made some really clutch plays in some really big moments off some really good pitchers. That game 3 will go down as one of the best we've ever seen. The back and forth, the drama, the fireworks. Hell, the home run Judge hit off Clase. He might be the only player in baseball that can hit that as a home run. That was a 99-mile-an-hour cutter on the outside corner. Low. And he puts that into the right field bleachers. Just simply incredible. Incredible. And then Stanton does what Stanton's done all postseason. And it sucks. It sucks that this didn't get at least one more game, because the Guardians played well enough throughout the series that you would have hoped they got a little more luck on their side. And I was at games 4 and 5. And this atmosphere inside the stadium was incredible. Stuff that I'll be telling my grandkids about. And there was split seconds, and I go back to game 4 in particular, when Noel came in to pinch hit and crack of the bat, the stadium stopped. And he ends up flying out to deep left field, almost off the wall, about 3 feet longer, and that's off the wall for a double. And you knew it wasn't going to be a homer from where I was sitting. You could tell it wasn't high enough, but you could tell he hit it pretty damn well. And there was that split second of euphoria. And for that split second, you could feel Cleveland was on the precipice. It's been 76 years since this city has celebrated a World Series championship. They've been close. They were close. They should be close again for the next 5 years with the current construct of this roster. But they have to be aggressive. And it sucks. It kills me that things didn't work out last night and didn't work out this series. But they have the right management. They have the right front office, the right roster in place to be able to compete for a long time. The question is, will ownership help them? That remains to be seen. Enjoy the Guardians season. It was a blast. It was fun. They overachieved. They overexceeded every expectation. And those are the best kind of teams. They're the most fun teams. And if I know anything about Stephen Vogt, Stephen Kwan, and Jose, and a lot of the main players on this team, last night's loss is going to haunt them for a while because they were that close. And sometimes you need to have that heartbreak and that taste of what it could be to rewrite your redemption story. And there's a chance that we look back on this very day 4 or 5 years from now and say they needed that loss. They needed to lose to the Yankees in that kind of series to understand what it takes to win a championship, not just win a division title, but to win a championship. And we'll see if this sparks the necessary moves from the front office, from ownership, from the coaching staff, from the players, from their perspective at the plate, from their perspective at the mound, to figure out ways to improve this roster to put them in the same contention with the top teams in the league. They got there this year in the scrappiest, most unexpected of ways. We'll see what happens this summer. We'll see what happens next fall, next spring. And I just want to say this, because the Browns play in 36 minutes, and that has been a catastrophe so far. The Guardians were a breath of fresh air. They were everything that was fun about sports. It's a damn shame the season's over. It's hard to say they deserve better because they overachieved and reached the ALCS when their preseason win total was just 79.5 games. But the way that series ended, feels like they got done dirty. All right, we'll see you after the Browns game for a Bleacher Report post-game wrap-up. Appreciate you guys tuning into a little Guardians vent session. They were close, but close only counts, and hand grenades ain't baseball. See you later. Peace.